Welcome to Takaro Kids. This is the place where we break down the news of today and make it a little bit more interesting and a little bit easier for you to understand. I am Kiran and I'm joined by.
You're joined by Debkanya, who is also the co-host of Takaro Kids. We love bringing you the news because it's good to know what's happening around the world. It's also good to understand why it's happening. There's always a story behind the story, and that's what we try and explain on Takaro Kids. And with that, we are going to get started. We're going to cover 3 different types of stories today. So stay tuned. Okay.
The first one is all about rain.
Yes, that's right. If you live in Bombay, if you live in Bangalore, Delhi, or maybe anywhere in UP, you probably know what we're talking about because you've seen it happening all around you. It's been raining buckets. In fact, it's not normal for this time of the year for it to rain as much as it has been. In fact, in certain
It's normal
parts.
for it to rain
Yeah,
in some
but
parts, but not
not this
so much,
much.
right? Yeah,
Not
it's
this
crazy.
much. Yeah, yeah. In fact, Bangalore, Kiran, you live in
Mm.
Bangalore. I've heard it's
Yeah,
been quite bad because there have been boats that have been brought out, tractors that have been brought out to help people. What's the situation?
yeah. So it's actually interesting, right? So even on my terrace, the kind of winds that are out there, it is crazy because it's so strong that it's actually blowing away my pots and dropping my pots
Oh,
and everything, which
wow.
has never happened before, right? So it's kind of like really strong winds. And then when the rainfall comes in, it is really, really heavy rainfall that's coming in as well. But all the flooding, most of the flooding is actually also happening in some of the newer parts of Bangalore. So, places that have developed over the last 15 years and so have expanded
Hmm.
beyond the central region as well. And unfortunately, the problem with Bangalore and the development has also been the fact that many of those areas were actually built on dry lake beds. So they
Hmm.
are conducive to, bringing in lots of water and then just keeping it there. And that's the result of the flooding, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's also the problem that's been faced by a lot of people in Bangalore.
Yeah, whenever I come to Bangalore and people who live there, you can see the amount of work and construction, development that has been happening in that city for years now. And oftentimes what happens, and this is an extremely important thing, right? Urban planning. It's where people who
Yeah.
understand how the land is, how the land lies, where the water should flow, they usually come together and plan how to build a city, right? To
Hmm.
Kiran's point, Bangalore has lots and lots of lakes, like over 100 and I think almost 140 lakes. But a lot of these
Yeah.
lakes have dried up and we've just built over them. Even though urban planners
Yeah.
have said we shouldn't be doing it. So we've not been listening to the urban planners and going ahead and building because, hey, we want more apartments, we want more malls, we want more offices. And that is what is causing the problem today. And this is across the world, right? If you're going to keep building without
Yeah.
thinking about the consequences, you are going to have to deal with what happens after. And this is also, again, like we said, it's pre-monsoon showers, which is again heavier than usual. Multiple states have issued orange alerts and red alerts now. To explain what that means, orange alert is when they are predicting very heavy rainfall and there's going to be floods. A red alert is when you have to be really, really careful, stay at home, don't go out. If you're in a low-lying area, go to higher ground, things like that, right? So these alerts are being issued because it has been quite bad, right? And it's not
Yeah.
normal. This is, again, you could blame it on climate change, you could blame it on all the, on global warming and, the change in the patterns of the weather, of how much rain should be falling at what time. So it affects a lot of things, and this is just another impact of that.
Yeah. And even in Delhi, right? So right now, today, I'm in Delhi as we record
Oh,
this.
wow.
And even over here, there was a huge hailstorm a couple of days ago. There's something that's gone viral, which is a flight from Delhi to Srinagar,
Yeah, the
which got
Indigo
caught.
flight.
Yeah, which got caught in the hailstorm, and then they landed. Everyone was safe. There was crazy turbulence, but the hailstorm, which are basically ice storms, right, which are being
Yeah,
flung from the sky,
that's
um,
scary.
hitting the aircraft, and the front nose of the aircraft was completely damaged and almost gone, like
Mm,
massive holes being poked
scary.
through it, right? So it's scary, but I think the meteorological department had also said this earlier itself that this year we're expecting over 100%. I think it was like 110, 115% in terms of monsoon. So that
Mm,
means it is more than the usual. Last year was really, really bad. Karnataka and Bangalore went through a massive water crisis. Here, this time, it's the exact opposite. So, like you said, it's because of the swinging sort of global climate that a lot of this is changing so much.
yeah. Yeah.
So, stay safe
So,
and let us know if you all have had any experiences. That would be really good to kind of hear
yeah,
about, and
there's more
hopefully,
heavy
everyone is
rain
safe.
that yeah, there's more heavy rain that's been predicted across the country in different parts of the country. So yeah, stay safe. But speaking of climate change, there's a man who's been denying climate change for a while, and that is someone who always makes an
Our,
appearance
our guest
on
speaker,
Takara.
Donald Trump.
Yeah, maybe one
Yeah,
day he will speak to us. Yeah,
yeah.
Donald Trump has always, the US president has always said that, climate change isn't what it is made out to be in the news. But that's not what we're going to be talking about today.
No,
Today, there's another very interesting story that's coming out of the US, and this is to do
huge.
with Harvard.
Hmm. So Harvard is what is known as an Ivy League school, right, in
Mm-hmm.
the US. And the Ivy League are supposedly some of the best colleges to get into globally. But it's the Ivy League in the US and globally renowned to be one of the best colleges to get into, if you're doing your MBA and maybe other sort of courses. They've expanded quite a bit over the years, and they're one of the oldest ones as well. And what has happened, just as context before we get into the actual story, is that Harvard has always said that they are fairly open. They are, not an institution that's going to bend to the rules of anyone. And
It's a private
the
institution, so they have their
it
own
is a
rules that they
private
will follow.
institution,
Yeah.
correct? Very, very wealthy institution. They have a
Yeah.
lot of money that's been, given to them from funding perspective. But Trump has been really pissed off with them, which is basically, the fact that he was very pissed off with them for a couple of things. One is they had a lot of pro-Palestine, campaigns and activities happening on
Yeah.
campus, which he was not very happy with. And two, he wanted them to end their diversity programs, to which they said, no, that's not happening, right? So for the past 2 months, he's been sending little kind of things, ways to stop them, to irritate them. And yesterday was one of the biggest ones, which is that suddenly they've basically thrown out an order saying Harvard cannot accept any foreign students. And they have for students coming in from 140 countries every year.
Wow.
Tons of Indians, tons of Indians.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so Harvard can no longer accept foreign students, which is crazy. I mean, that is
And
such a huge step.
not just that, Harvard can't accept any new foreign students, but they've also said, I believe, that if you have any existing current students, I mean, which
Yeah,
Harvard does, then they need to
yeah,
transfer to another university in order to maintain their non-immigrant status. Like
yeah.
this is going a little too far, you would imagine, because you're going into a private institute, you're telling them how they can run. They have also in the past cut funding, but Harvard is extremely wealthy. So, Harvard can figure out ways to get funding from other sources. For example, some of the richest and most influential people studied at Harvard. So, they can just call upon their alumni to kind of help them out during the situation.
Yeah, yeah. And I think,
Yo,
okay,
to help them out to no wait. Harvard can always
just,
call upon Howard can always call upon their alumni to help them out during this situation. But now this latest one is bizarre because it's not only impacting Harvard itself, but also all its students who've actually had nothing really to do with this whole,
yeah, yeah.
fight between Trump
I
and
don't know. I mean, I think
Harvard.
it's one step too far, right? Like you said, I don't know, but let's see how it
How it
moves
plays
ahead.
out.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy, and we'll keep you kind of posted if anything relevant shows up.
Yeah.
And then on to, you know, maybe
The final
something happier.
news of the day.
Yeah, something
Yes.
happier. We've been talking about
I'm
Karnataka.
We were talking about Karnataka, yes, but this is better news, and it's super exciting for
Yeah.
me because I track this every year, and I try
Mhm.
and get. Okay, let's talk about what it is. We're talking about the International Man Booker Prize, which is an
Mhm.
extremely prestigious award for writers from across the world, where books are long listed. Basically, people submit their for this award, they get long listed, and then they get shortlisted, and then a winner is announced. And that's what happened, and it's an extremely proud moment for us because, again, it's an Indian author who has won the award this year.
Mhm. And so I'm sure you're going to give us the name, but to just add some more context. So it is a very, very big award, right? The Booker Prize.
Yeah.
And it is basically only those who write books for adults. So
Mm-hmm,
unfortunately,
mm-hmm.
no kids' books can ever be a part of the Booker
Unfortunately.
Prize. But it has to be in English and it has to also be published in the UK or Ireland, right? So it's kind of like giving a gold medal for someone who's written something super interesting, and it's kind of like the Olympics for
Yes.
books written in English for adults. And the winner actually gets a cash prize as well. So it's not just the name, but there's a cash prize, and they become really, really famous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
And
who
this
is it?
this time, it's a lady who is from Karnataka. Kiran, you gave that away right at the top. This lady called Banu Mushtaq, whose work called it's a collection of short stories called Heart Lamp was translated by Deepa Bhasthi. Now these two ladies are winning it jointly because Banu Mushtaq writes in Kannada, and her work, like you said, it has to be in English, right? So it was translated by Deepa Bhasthi, and they have won the International Booker Prize for
Woohoo!
2025.
That's huge. And
Yeah.
she's 77, she's an activist, lawyer, writer. Like you said, she writes in Kannada, but her work has already been published in multiple other languages. So a lot of her previous work was in Urdu, Tamil, Malayalam, many,
Yeah.
many different, I would say, languages. And what's also interesting, what I read was
Hmm.
at the age of 8, she was actually enrolled into a Kannada language school in Karnataka.
Huh.
And the condition that her parents put on her was that she had to learn and read and write Kannada in 6 months.
Wow. 6 months to master
However,
a language.
yeah, however, she began to write after a few days of school.
Wow. So she was always
Yeah.
brilliant at the age of
She was
8, huh?
always, yeah, language inclined, I
Language
guess.
inclined. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
No, but that's wonderful. So her book is called Heart Lamp, and it's supposed to be very, very interesting. It talks about her,
Mhm.
these are short stories based on her own life experiences. So I think it'll be great to check that out. But I don't know if it's meant for children yet. So it's probably not. Maybe when you're older. So great. So that's some good news that we'd like to end this episode on. But we do not ever end an episode without giving you a quiz question. And of course, the answer to
Woohoo!
last week's episode question.
Yeah. So this week's quiz question, what is it, Debbie?
Well, this week's quiz question is related to the story that we just told you, and the hints are in in what we've, revealed already. Where does the latest Booker Prize winner, Banu Mushtaq, live? You need to look that up. Don't say Karnataka because we said
Yeah,
that.
we're not looking at just the state, we're looking at the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So look her up and
Excellent.
tell us where she lives.
And as usual, if you give us the right answer and you're one of the lucky winners that's picked up, you get a gift voucher.
Yes. You
And
get a gift
we've
voucher
had
from us.
multiple winners in the past. And if you know the right answer, get your parents to send us a message on takarokids.com or on our Instagram, and we will make sure that you are added into the pool. Who knows?
Yep.
You could be the lucky winner.
And we will also
And
talk about you and mention your name if you'd like us to, and announce to the world that you got the answer right. Meanwhile, last week's quiz question, a few of you did
yes.
send in the correct answer. And before we go into that, let's tell you what the question was. The question
Mhm.
was, what is the name of the fleet that the US president uses to fly around the world? What is the aircraft called? And Kiran, you want to give the answer away?
Air Force One. Yes, that was the answer. And
Yeah.
we have a lucky winner. We actually have 9-year-old Isa, who is this week's lucky winner.
Yay,
Congratulations,
Isa.
Isa. And once again, you're going to get your gift voucher fairly soon. So hope you continue to listen and spread the word about Takaro.
Thank you so much for listening in again. We will be back again next week with a brand new episode and a lot of news updates. Until then, it's goodbye from us.
Bye bye. This one felt more a little bit like a news report.